We'll have to send for the rescue team.
Don't give up now, Peter. We've sent for help. The mountain rescue have sent for a big, ginormous crane to get you out. You'll be all right, really.
Oh.
Hey, what are you two doing down there? Will you hurry up?
Well, Peter is exhausted, but we'll have to rally him round because you know what day it is.
It's Friday.
It's 5 to 5 and it's
Welcome to today's show. We're interviewing comedian and star of Crackerjack, Bernie Clifton. When you grew up, what was your childhood like?
St Helens, poor terraced house. Everybody, like all the kids in the area, wore clogs, and but because we'd no idea that there was any other form of life, we were happy. We didn't know we hadn't got anything because we didn't know anybody that had anything. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And at about at the age of I was 4 when they dropped a bomb on the street 3 doors up, missed us by about 20 yards. So there was somebody was looking after us that night. So we were in the middle of it, but you know, we were fine. Everybody else was in the same boat. So I've got no feelings of being deprived. Big family, 4 brothers, and that's just the way it was. Didn't enjoy school too much. I was not the best student, but although I passed my 11 plus by some kind of fluke, and then got myself into grammar school, which was a total disaster from year 1 to year 4. And instead of going through for the GCSEs and the A levels, I just left under a cloud at the age of 15. First job was like the Hovis lad delivering bread at the Co-op.
Right.
And then because of my parents, they were looking out. I ended up as a plumber for St Helens Corporation. Aptitude for that kind of work, but it didn't seem to matter as long as you had a trade, as the man said. And then from then, getting through at the end of that, 2 years national service in the RAF, and again as a plumber, found myself as a radar mechanic. We were deployed at the RAF bombing school in Lindop, South Yorkshire, which was on the doorstep of South Yorkshire Clubland, of course. And I found myself at weekends as a boy singer, because that's the talent I had then, was as a singer, pottering around the clubs and doing very nicely, thank you. You know, there was so much work back then, and as my friend always used to say, there were places to be bad in, Sean. There was so much work, and you were only like singing wallpaper in between the bingos, so it didn't really matter. But it was a learning curve, and I spent years as a singer until finally the props started to appear. You know, the nonsense, the lunacy.
How did you get into the prop side of things then? What happened there? What was the first one?
I think coming from St Helens, Merseyside, Liverpool, Scousers, a lot of Irish in our community, working on the building sites, there was this kind of anarchy, and a lot of the tradesmen had just been in World War II. You know, they'd come back with a certain attitude, like a humour, and we'd do anything. Practical jokes were the norm, and there was this kind of bubble of mischief, I suppose, that I'd grown up with. And so finding myself on stage as a singer, there were always props there in those kind of clubs. The piano stool would be one of the old style piano stools that you lifted it up, and there was a huge quantity of old music in there. I just started messing about, and one thing led to another until I got a little spot on the good old days from Leeds, and that would be about 1971. And I was singing a bit and doing a few gags, And Les Dawson was topping the bill, and he must have seen something in me, because he took me to one side and said, "You're okay doing that, what you've done tonight, but you're just like one of 100. Why don't you find a style?" And he said, "What do you really enjoy?" And I said, "Well, I love mucking about with props." He said, "Well, why don't you go out and be a prop comic, a visual comic?" And I kind of took him at his word, and within a year or two, I'd acquired or accrued this mountain of props, like a joke mic stand. I used to fill the mic stand up that I had. I'd fill it up with marbles, and then I'd put it on its stand, and then the first thing I did when I went out after my opening song, I just picked the mic stand up, leaving the bass behind, and this avalanche of marbles would go down the stage, and I used to go into club early and fix a gutter down the front of the stage, so that the marbles would run off the front, go in the gutter. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? And then fall into I had a biscuit tin, so at one end, so you'd have this cacophony of sound rolling into this metal bucket and a biscuit tin. So that's what I was. That was my. I found I was following my star, if you like.
Were there any comedians that you really liked?
Well, yeah. I mean, because of as I've explained, the mischief bubble. I just love the visuality. Doddy, I suppose, would be Ken Doddy at the time was my number one, and then people like Tommy Cooper and in the film world, the Marx Brothers, that kind of nonsense. There was always a kind of a nonsense element, and maybe like a surrealism about the places that these kind of comedians could take you to, as distinct from the patter comics. I was always attracted and lent towards that other dimension of comedy, the visuality, and it's never left me.
Were you in a situation ever in a club where your acts just bombed completely and you felt, because they were quite rough pubs, weren't they, back then?
How long have you got? All the time. It's that thing about you were only there for a reason, and you were just filling in between bingo, and then you'd do a lot of noon and nights, as we call them. What part of the world are you from originally?
I'm from South Yorkshire originally.
Oh, you are, right.
Yeah.
Well, back in whereabouts exactly? Whereabouts?
Near Mexborough, near Doncaster.
Oh, yeah, I know it so well. In fact, probably worked not that they're there anymore, Sean, but the clubs and the pubs in Mexborough and Grindthorpe and Wath, and I've done them all, in the early 60s, and we were there. Yeah, you'd get by. It's that old saying about if they liked you, they let you live, because you weren't. And there was plenty of opposition as well. You'd be doing a social club in, let's say, in Wath or anywhere in that area, and they'd watch your first spot, and you'd know by the time you came out for your second one, if the club was empty, they'd gone down the road, to try. And any kind of pit village would have, at least one miners' welfare, a couple of social clubs, perhaps an ex-serviceman's club, and a pub or two that did entertainment. So they were tough because they were seeing entertainment, 3, 4, 5 nights a week. So there were plenty of occasions, but I was lucky in a way that I hadn't at that time progressed to full-on comedy. I was trying it out, but I got my singing voice to fall back on. That was my mainstay. I was a sort of a singer for quite some time who sold a few gags, and if things were tough, I could always fall back on the voice, As I used to really admire the comics who walked in with nothing. And it was only during that period, that the props started to turn up, and I think it was a kind of difficult transition, if you like, because depending on where I was, I was a singer with a few gags, but if I was going down very well, half a mile down the road, I was that comic, who could sing a bit.
How did you get the transition to the other shows like Crackerjack and so on?
Slow process, coming up through the clubs and establishing a reputation, and the comedy had got firm hold then. It was you actually forged your way up, and it eventually got onto the. I was doing a summer season in Jersey. People that knew me from the clubs, I started doing summer seasons first in the late 60s, early 70s, and I did 2 or 3 of them in Jersey. And the guy I was working with, a guy from Clydebank actually, a very well-known singer called Stuart Gillis, he'd done very well on Opportunity Knocks, and he was a Jersey resident, and the guy who was his manager booked me for the summer, and then 2 years later booked me for another summer, and as a result of Stuart Gillis being managed by a London management called Noel Gay, very, very influential man, they came to see Stuart during the summer, saw me and signed me up, and then within Richard Armitage, who ran Noel Gay at the time, I remember him saying to me, if you sign with me, I'll have the head of BBC Light Entertainment over here to see you in 2 weeks, and that was Bill Cotton. And he did. I signed with him, and Bill Cotton came over, and then another producer came over, and I then got the Lulu series in the mid-70s, doing a 13-week Saturday night show as the comic on the Lulu show, and that was BBC One, Saturday night, 13 weeks, which was unbelievable exposure, and led me into summer season, more TV, Crackerjack, and upwards and onwards. It was a slow, bendy process, though.
Did you have to tone your act down at all?
Not really. No. It's interesting that if you look at nightclub entertainment now, at this time, or perhaps even over the last 10, 20 years, it's been kind of adult humour. But back then, we were doing Crackerjack, and I'd be at the weekends, I'd be doing midnight cabaret in cabaret clubs all over the country. It was. And the Crankies were the same, It was, you could entertain families, and you would be accepted doing that form of wholesome but family entertainment. Late night cabaret, Keith Harris and Orville used to do. We were all doing. We were covering a lot of different and wearing a lot of different caps, but the material in itself was. Wouldn't be offensive. There were stag comics doing the circuit, but there was a lot of people like myself who were covering all exits, if you like.
Yeah. Crackerjack was filmed live, wasn't it?
Virtually. We did. I think it was a 50-minute show, and the recording time we were allowed was less than an hour.
Oof. And
we were told by. Particularly by Alan Bell, our producer for that period, who went on to produce Last of the Summer Wine for 25 years, and he used to say to us, if you make a mistake, it'll go out, we won't stop. And that was the case, and it was a great learning curve. It was almost like you were out there and the kids were screaming, and you were doing sketches, and you were doing songs, and the things were changing. The ground was moving on the foot, either the props wouldn't arrive or the prop wouldn't work or somebody, do something wrong. But you went on through it, you sort of powered through it, exactly, as live. So it was like a rep company on television, and at that time, you talked about toning down. It was family entertainment as well. Everybody used to turn out and sit down on Friday at 5 to 5 with kids, with the parents, and it was a special time.
Yeah. Well, that was my Crackerjack era, before the Stu Francises and that sort of thing, and that was my era when you were in it. Very fond memories of all that.
Yeah, Yeah, I was talking to Don McLean the other day. We keep meeting at funerals, as you do, and we were saying the same. You know, I think back in particularly in Leslie Crowther's time, and then Don. It was Leslie Crowther, then it was Don, then it was me, and I think. With respect to to Stu and the Crankies, I think it lost its way and went to sort of like custard pie thing. But back when we were doing it, you know, we were doing 3 sketches, finishing with a musical finale, featuring parodies on all the pop songs that you could insert. You know, we're doing a Napoleon sketch, and we'd managed to get a medley from Greece in it. You know, it was wonderfully creative, special time. I'm still in touch with Don, of course, and although I never worked on the show with him, we're good friends. And Jan Hunt, who I was with on the show on Crackerjack for 4 years. Jan was still is on the road doing a music hall, good old days type show.
What was the social life like in Crackerjack? Did you all socialise together? Was it like a...
I cannot, not particularly.
Yeah.
I was like a northern lad and used to commute up and down as much as I could. And I was doing the clubs again at weekends. Peter Glaze lived down in Kent, so he would commute. And everybody else, Ed as well, Ed Stewart and Jan, again, lived locally. So we all kind of did our own thing. But there wasn't that much social life really, because we went in, I think we had like a 5-day turnaround, and we'd get the script on the first day and we'd hammer it, change it, scrap it, burn it, start again. And by about the 3rd day, at long hours, we'd just about got it, and it was almost time then for the dress rehearsal and the show. So it was pretty manic, and the first thing I'd do, with that 2-day break, I'd either jump in my car and head off to South Wales and do a cabaret, or I'd head up home to Derbyshire and have time with the family. So it's funny, isn't it? I don't recall hardly any social life surrounding the show. But I'm sure there was, and I know we were all on very good terms. But it was there's a lot of pressure.
Were your family from a sort of entertainment background themselves?
Not at all. No, I came out from St Helens. Nobody was involved in show business. In fact, when I announced my intention of giving up plumbing and and staying in Doncaster and doing the clubs or the pubs, it was generally agreed by the family that I was going to the devil. In fact, that was the phrase. You know, to give up, back in those days, Sean, to give up a trade and go and be a turn, oh, God. I must have really, it's only recently that you realise I must have really upset them. Fortunately, my parents lived long enough to see me have some kind of success. So, but during that period, there was a lot of head shaking going on.
How did you persuade Oswald to buddy up with you?
Oh, that was just another prop. Funnily enough, just another prop. We did. I was doing, by the time I got to the mid-70s, I'd got a pair of biscuit tins I was dancing in. I'd got a big lion skin I was doing a ventriloquist act with. I'd got a cat on my shoulder I'd found. I'd been to Shepperton Film Studios and at an auction and bid for a 12-foot rubber shark. I got this just huge menagerie, and then this just prop came along. Somebody said, "Have you seen this?" It transpired that it's like an old music hall prop. In fact, people say it goes back to the Middle Ages when people used to dress on, you know the hobby horse expression.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it came. I had a guy at the time who was making our props, Peter, and he'd done the cat thing for me and other stuff I was working on. And I just sent him the idea, and he said, "Oh, God, I think I can do something with this." Rang me a few months later and said, "Do you want to come and try it?" And I just went down and said, "Oh yeah, this is all right." No idea of its eventual profile, but it was just another prop, Sean, but gradually achieved some kind of notoriety, or Colin, whatever that word is. Having said that, it took years and years for it to get to its. I think we kind of perfected it, but the initial variant was pretty crude, I think, and basic, and I think it was only by spending a lot of time and money on improving the realism, that it was it got away. I think there was several versions of it that weren't worth like you see the joke shop ones now, the inflatable ones back in the day. Although they wanted inflatable, it was pretty. I haven't really got any video of those early appearances, but I think I would. I think I'd be slightly embarrassed if I saw them. It's the old story, isn't it? Things don't happen. It might happen initially. There might be an accident, but it's only by what you do with the idea then, following that you get any success. And like I said, it transpired. There was a guy. I think Peter, who did some research. There was a guy he actually was the manager of Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and this guy had a music hall in Nottingham and other parts of the country, and he had this creature that he jumped on the back of. It made of paper mache, and there is something in this business that nothing's new. Everything has been done before, but maybe in a different way. I did a seaside special in the late 70s, and I'd devised this trick. I'd rigged this costume up so that I was playing the trombone, and as the trombone slide went out, my trouser legs went up and down, and then eventually the trousers. And I thought I was a genius, and I went and did a seaside special. And Michael Hurl, the producer, came over to me at the end of the rehearsal and said, "That's lovely. That's your trombone routine with the trousers legs, fantastic." He said, "I haven't seen that since Lupino Lane did it at the Palladium in 1948. And I said, "Hang on a minute." So, we just do what we can with whatever we've got.
Now, I might have imagined this growing up, but were you, every time I saw, like, the London Marathon or something, I'm sure that you were taking part as well. Did I see that right?
Yeah, I watched the first London Marathon in 1981, and I got the Ostrich by this time. And there was a father and son who they ran a pub in Wolverhampton, and they completed the first marathon in a rhinoceros costume. The father was bent double at the back, and the son was sort of unbelievable. And I suddenly thought, if they can do that, I could do it on the Ostrich. And I went to the people at 321, the Rowley brothers, who made that Dusty Bin character. And I asked them if they could breed me a lightweight ostrich, and subsequently, again, after several versions and spending a lot of time, I found myself on the start line of the marathon in 1982. Thinking, and having trained like a commando for 6 months, I still didn't think I'd complete it. I thought I'd get halfway around and then just call it a day. But I got round the course on it. I think it was about 4 hours, 15 minutes, which is remarkable. And subsequently, I did it every year. I did it for 6 years, until on the last one I ran out of steam, and they wrapped me up in some bacon foil to stop me dying. And I thought, well, I've got that out of my system now, haven't I? Find something else to do in my spare time. Yeah, that was me in the 80s, Sean.
Yeah, every time I saw a marathon, you were in it. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was just I was up for anything. You know what I mean? I was up for any kind of nonsense that was really off the wall. I'd go for it. I had an enormous fat suit made. Again, Peter. And I used to go on the cruise ships doing my show, and I'd get this big fat suit out of my trunk in the middle of the cruise and just wobble around the deck as this eccentric, like with a Stetson and dark glasses, looking like this eccentric American billionaire. Nowadays, you look at people on the street and you think, oh, well, that wasn't so fat. but it was, I think and I'd say this to anyone, it was of its time. I was doing stuff that appealed to me and drove me, and I suppose I hadn't got any kind of mission to be different. I was just doing what appealed to me, and as a result, it was things like the marathon that you just remembered. So who knows what's it all about? If that bomber had fell 20 yards to one side, Sean, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Oh, I'm glad we are.
You know, it makes you think, doesn't it? You know, it's like the path that you take, the journey, without getting too sort of profound, but there is, what is it just following destiny, or just following your nose? I think occasionally I think about that. I think what got you to this place from where you were as a kid in St. Helens wearing clogs. Why did you take this direction? If you just thought to yourself at the age of 23, oh, sorry, I'm going to, never mind the voice, I'll get back and become a plumber. Probably none of it would have. I had to leave St. Helens to plough a new furrow, if you like. Maybe that's what we all have to do.
Do you ever think that could have made it as a singer?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's my ambition now.
Yeah.
I always say that I was a singer that got in with the wrong crowd, because after doing The Voice, and subsequently having been seen on The Voice, was picked up for the Las Vegas series. I didn't know this until somebody whispered it to me. We saw you on The Voice and thought, wow, he's still around and he can sing. And it brings you to... but back in the day, that's all I ever wanted to do, as a singer with a dance band and a singer around the clubs. Even though I was having fun with the props and the comedy, I really was an out-and-out singer. That was my main. My main thrust was to make it as a singer. Now you're supposed to enter talent contests and do all kinds of stuff, send recordings off to recording companies, and even now at my age, I'm back mainly as a result of The Voice, and then as a result of getting that reaction in Vegas when I sang One Moment in Time. But I still, it's a thing about never giving up. I've just met up with this singing teacher in Sheffield, who I'd heard about for years and years, and finally got together with him only about 2 or 3 months ago. And even now, he's made such a difference. And I go every week, and I work out vocally every day. And this show that I'm putting on the road, it's like an evening with, it's actually called. I ought to send you I'll send you a flyer.
Yeah, please, yeah.
It's I've got a couple of gigs in September. We're just not trying it out, but it's like a pilot tour. With a view to touring it again and again and again. And it's like from Crackerjack to Vegas, it's called.
Right.
And the singing plays an important part of it, because I've got the voice, so I've just got to make sure I can... what's the expression about being the best I can be with it? So singing lessons is something that's integral to the... I nearly said plan then, but I don't know whether there is a plan. It's just a need to follow things through, I think.
Why did you go on with The Voice?
The same thing. Yeah. I had a conversation with a guy, it'll be, 5 or 6 years ago now, about singing, and I'd love to get into and sing like the Italian. And he said, "Oh, I'll introduce you." He ran a theatre school, this guy, and he introduced me to one of his students, who is now a very, very well-known soprano called Carly Paoli, and a beautiful young woman and beautiful voice. She came up. She at the time was a student at the Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester, and my friend who ran the school sent her up. She auditioned me in my kitchen while her parents sat outside of the car thinking, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And she said, well, I'll talk to my vocal coach at the college, see if he'll take you on. And I went over and auditioned for him, and he thought it was a wind-up. He's this old guy in the reception amongst all these young students. Anyway, he heard me out, and he took me on. His name, Scottish guy, David Maxwell Anderson. And I had a few years with David, and he brought this voice out of me. And as a result, I thought, what am I going to do with it? So I sent off an audition for The Voice without telling anyone. I didn't tell my family, and I didn't tell my agent, because if I had, they'd have tried to talk me out of it. Mm. And eventually, I was auditioning for The Voice as a retired plumber from St Helens, a 79-year-old, and fortunately got through all the different processes until the blind audition. Mm. And even though they didn't turn around, it made such a difference. People went, wow. Mm. So again, there's a kind of a message there somewhere, isn't there? If you just go for it.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm not a big fan of reality shows, but that is one show that we do watch, and obviously I recognised straight away, and I thought, what,
Oh, exactly, yeah. What the hell? What is he doing? But if I had this beamer on, I'm saying this guy in Manchester is really producing this voice. So what? It's how can I tell people? And the voice to me seemed like the most civilized way. There were other. I like the process, especially as it was then. That even if they didn't turn around, you could chat to the judges afterwards, and that's the way it was revealed. That I was who I was, especially to Ricky Wilson, because he'd had this experience with me as a child. His father, who was a TV producer, took him to a show that I was on, and I came out on the Ostrich and frightened him to death. He was only 6, and it defined, to quote Ricky, it defined his childhood. So there might be some kind of a continuing theme here about if you think you can do something, stop thinking about it, but just do it. Just do it, yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think about reality TV shows now? Because I think it's the balance has gone. I mean, I don't mind one or two, but it seems to be 80% of shows now seems to be some sort of a camera following someone around.
Yeah, there is no alternative, is there? I mean, I certainly I take them with a pinch of salt, but I shouldn't, in terms of what it's done for me. That opportunity to get to Las Vegas and appear in Las Vegas at my age. In a reality context, and it was at the end of it all, it was a privilege to have been asked and to have actually stayed the course. Apart from the fact, sharing a house with people of my age, people I've known all my life, but you don't really know people until you live with them, do you?
No.
And my memories of that particular reality show, because in fact that's what it was, are very, very positive. And we were knackered, we jumped through a lot of hoops, but we were hysterical at the same time. We just had the greatest time. I can't tell you how grateful I am to have been given the chance. But in terms of reality, I agree. The pendulum has swung too far, hasn't it? No, it's a shame. I mean, variety. When we went out to Vegas and we put on, if you like, an 80s variety show, and the Yanks loved it. I still think there's a market. I went to Scarborough and did a summer season last year, and the families that were in, the kids had been dragged in kicking and screaming, but they loved it. because they've never seen anything like it. The audience participation and the props and the nonsense. You just can't get that. It's a pity that seems to have run its course, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's just cheap TV, isn't it, with the cameras? You know,
Well, it's easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, turn the camera around and watch people. We're watching people doing everyday things, aren't we?
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a cure or an antidote. No, well, I'm sure there is, because it'll evolve. Things always evolve, don't they? Things will change again. And I was last week. I was with I went to see the League of Gentlemen in Buxton. You know, they're on tour.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely amazing. It's like seeing a big superstar rock band on tour. They've got articulated lorries and scene changes and a big tour bus and coach. You know, blacked out windows, double decker. It's just a fantastic vehicle that they're touring at the moment, and they're doing arenas. And when you think of what they're starting, 20 odd years ago with League of Gentlemen, and creating these characters, and now, but you couldn't possibly have imagined that, could you? That you'd be watching comedy in arenas and stadiums.
No, not at all.
Not that I like the idea of watching comedy in arenas and stadiums, because you end up seeing a tiny figure on stage and looking at screens, which is back to basics, isn't it?
Yeah. Was there any opportunities that you missed out on that you regret? Just by happenstance,
How long have you got? No, you do. It's twists and turns, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's twists. You look at things, and I've auditioned and gone up for shows, and I perfect the audition in the car on the way home.
Yeah.
Always. Everything I've ever done, there are so many twists and turns and opportunities that weren't made the most of. Too numerous to mention, but at the end of the day, it's my story, isn't it?